All right, so this is an example of the paperwork for the master lease. In this example, I started renting the property, and then I did the turn. So I spent actually about $7,000 to get started on this deal. Paint, vinyl plank flooring, some of the repairs that are needed for the property. And then I started renting as a tenant. So this is how it works here. Palm Breeze LLC. That's me. That's the office address. I just whited out the other address, protect everybody's privacy here. So that's it. So the landlord for this amount of payment, rent this property. You're gonna whited that out. So here are the terms. The tenant will rent for $500 from August 1st, 2018 to August 1st, 2023. So for 5 years, it's gonna be $500. This is called an escalating lease, where it goes up every 5 years. The next 5 years is 600. The next 5 years is $700. The idea is to protect the landlord there from increases in taxes, insurance, inflation, etc. And then it's the landlord acknowledges that the tenant may sublease the property and expects to profit by said subleasing. So that's it. That's the whole business model in that sentence there. I'll rent the place from you, and then I'm going to find a good tenant, and I'm going to try to be a smart property manager to make money on the spread. Um, So then it goes into the default. If the tenant doesn't pay, they're out of there. The landlord keeps all the money they received. The responsibility for the landlords is to pay the property taxes and to pay for the insurance, and then add the tenant on as an additional insured to the policy. And then it says tenant shall be responsible for all costs of maintenance and repairs not covered by insurance. So this is something you wouldn't see in a typical residential lease anyway. It's more common on the commercial side. But that means that I can't call the landlord if I have a problem. That's on me. So I'm the tenant and I got to fix it. Anything except covered by insurance. And then this last part gets into the other obligation for the landlord. If there's a mortgage, they got to make the mortgage payment. This gets into what happens if the owner of the property doesn't make the mortgage payment and goes into foreclosure. Gives me some rights to cure, basically catch up the mortgage. And then it says this would be secured by a deed of trust. That's typically, and I didn't do it with this one. I should have, because like I said, I spent $7,000. Uh, that's typical to record a deed of trust for money owed. That means if the property were to be sold tomorrow, then the closing attorney would say, okay, well, looks like we owe Danny 7,000. He'd get his money back. So that would give the tenant, protection in the event of a foreclosure or the sale of a property. Now in this case, okay, so then that's it. The whole thing's done. The whole thing's signed. That's the last page. It's really straightforward, simple lease. I like it. In this case, I didn't do a deed of trust. I did what's called a memorandum of lease. That just says I'm a tenant. Um, and again, it's typical to record leases that are longer than 3 years, 5 years, and in this case, this one's 15 years. So that's the reason to record it at the courthouse, and that's why this needs to be notarized, because it's recorded at the courthouse. So that's it. That's all the paperwork involved. Pretty straightforward. Thanks for your interest.